Hello friends, Fredric God here, and I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. Here we are with part 2 of Blazor authorization and authentication and so on. We covered a lot already, I think. Well, the basic client stuff in the first tutorial. Check it out here, please, or in the video description. And now it's time to combine this with the web API. So what we'll do in this tutorial now is we will put the token in the default HTTP request header. We will of course cover logging in a user, because with that we will make a web service call and create a JSON web token, and then we will return this thing, store this with the Blazored.LocalStorage package. Great stuff by Christianity, kudos to him. Store the token in the local storage, and then the authentication state provider will get the token from there, and then again we will have a look, is the user authenticated or not. And additionally to that, we will also make use of this event I told you from the last time, meaning if we have a component that is not directly connected to the authentication state provider, let's say, hope you get what I mean. If you watch the tutorial you will know what I mean. We will raise this sweet event, and then the component will know if the user is authenticated or not. And now there's only one thing I want to tell you. Thank you so much for 8,000 subscribers. This is unbelievable. Well, we got I think 7,000 in the beginning of January kinda, and now we've already got 8. So wow, this is amazing, guys. Thank you so much. This means the world to me. Maybe we can get to 10k this year, I don't know. It's just crazy what is happening in the last couple of weeks. So thank you so much for 8k. If you haven't subscribed yet and like these videos here, would be great if you subscribe, maybe even click the like button, and don't forget the bell icon so you will get a notification if a new video is uploaded. Additionally, maybe the newsletter is interesting for you. I send an email once a week at most, and there you will get early access to these videos and also to online courses by me, for instance the e-commerce course, which is coming this month. Promise, hope I can keep this promise, but I'm pretty sure it is coming. And the last thing, as always, guys, thank you so much for all your donations, all the coffee. I can really use the coffee lately. We've got, I think it's called sleep regression. If you have a toddler, I think you know what I mean. And the nights are getting harder again. I thought we were done, everything is fine now, but it seems that's not the case. Anyways, long story short, enjoy the tutorial. All right, quick recap. As you can see here, I've already opened the project. It is available on GitHub, so please have a look at the video description. There you will find the link to the GitHub repository. And what we did in essence in the last tutorial, in the first part of this Blazor authentication authorization tutorial stuff series, whatever, I hope it's done with this second part, but if not, again, write it down in the comments. But anyways, what we did is we created this custom auth state provider. I think this is one of the most important things here, because that thing decides if a user is authenticated or not. If you want to get to the details, please again have a look at the first part of this tutorial. But what we get here is this hard-coded token, and with the help of this token we create a claims identity. We parse this thing, got the code from Steve Anderson here, and when this JSON web token is parsed, we can create this claims principal, which is a user, then the state. We return this state, and also we raise the NotifyAuthenticationStateChanged event, and this will be important among other things. This will be important for this tutorial now, and please excuse me if I make some errors occur, because it is 10 o'clock and this is really late for me. Sun is sleeping, but not very well. Anyways, so we do this here, and or we did this, and additionally in the counter page we use the authorized view component with the authorized and not authorized view. So here we can show content depending on the current state of the user. And also important here in the app Razor file, we added the authorized route view instead of just the route view. We'll use this thing here also to have a little fun. And then the cascading authentication state. I think this was everything, or most of the stuff we did in the last tutorial in the first part. And now what I want to do is, again, as I told you, we make use of the server project here, so I won't use the best practices here. For that, please refer to other tutorials of my channel or in my channel, or have to add this little commercial here. Of course, you can always have a look at my online courses, for instance, the Blazor Bootcamp. There we will use best practices to do that, and do not forget the e-commerce course coming in the next couple of days. And here we will just add another controller, an auth controller that will again just return the hard-coded token. If you want to know how to create a JSON web token, have a look at the info card now. There you can see the video where you create this whole thing with the cryptography algorithm and so on. But what we will do is we just hard-code this stuff, but still we will add a login form where the user can enter anything in essence, and we get the proper token back. We return this thing, and then we will change something on the side on our application. And this is then interesting because some components will know that something has changed, that the authentication state has changed, although they do not ask the authentication state provider directly. Okay, so this just for another introduction here, and now I would say we just start with the server project here. So what I want to do again is add another controller. We see the weather forecast controller here already. Nice stuff, example stuff, and we add another one here in the controllers folder. We right click and add another controller, and this is an empty API controller. I like that stuff. It's empty, so I can do whatever I want. I have no generated code here, and sometimes this is just better for me. Well, auth controller it is. And what we do here is, again, a simple method, just a post method that you would use to log in a user, and actually then we would forward this request to a service with the repository pattern, inject this service, and so on. And then this service and this method then of the service would check if the given username and the password is correct in this login method that we will create now. But again, it's an HTTP post method. This is the HTTP method we are going to use, and public async task action result is okay, but we use the class here and we return a string, which is again the token. The method is called login, and what we could do just for fun is actually use a DTO. So if you do not know what this is, you see it now. So in our shared project now, we add a new class. And for instance, we can call this user login DTO. So DTO stands for data transfer object. And this just means, let's make this public. Jesus, public. Here it is. And this just means data transfer object that this object would not be mapped to the database. So this is not a user entity in essence with an ID, a username, a hashed password, a password salt, maybe an address, date of birth, I don't know, whatever you want to see here. We only want that what IntelliCode is suggesting here, a username. Can make this empty, and I would like to write it like that, and also the password. I think there was already the suggestion. Okay, and this is also an empty string by default, and that's it. So this is our DTO, again meaning data transfer object. We only use this class here to transfer data for the login. And now here in our auth controller, we can use it. So user login DTO, almost DTO. We add the using directive here to the shared project. Call this request, for instance. And then actually what we would do is we would, well, again, check the username, the password, do some stuff with the request. But in our case now, this is really just to show you how you could do it, but we don't do anything with that. I really just want to return the token. So We got it already in our AuthStateProvider. There it is. And now we just add it here. So it's still hard-coded. And again, I know I'm repeating this a lot today, but this is really just for the Blazor authentication stuff. So usually I would never do that, but I think it's too much for this little video here, and we covered this in another video. So bear with me if you think, Jesus Christ, what is this guy doing here? He can't do it like that. Please show me how it's done completely. But then again, this would be a complete course that would take several hours, I think. Anyways, we return the token here. All right, so that's really it. Of course, we do not have an async call here, but that would be the server part in essence. We have a login method, and we have also an object here, and we return the token then. Okay, that's nice. And with that out of the way, we can actually continue already with the client. And what I want to do here now is we add a login page where we make use of this post call here, and then after logging in, and in our case it will always be successful, right? So we get the token, and after we get the token from the server, I want to store it in the local storage. We will use a little NuGet package for that. And then we call the AuthenticationStateProvider, and the AuthenticationStateProvider then does exactly the same thing as in the first tutorial, but let's do it again one step after another. In our pages folder, we add a new Razor component, and that would be called login. And since this is a page, we add the page directive, and this would be the route then. And now we need some stuff. Actually, we need the shared project, but we can actually do that here. I'm prepared a little this time. Let's see if it helps. Shared, all right, so we got that out of the way. And then we need the HTTP client, similar to the fetch data page here with the weather forecast. Although again, I have to tell you that I would not do this in let's say in the bigger application or in production. Again, here I would use a service for that. We do this in the CRUD videos, for instance, of Blazor WebAssembly here on YouTube. So inject this thing then, and the service then would inject the HTTP client and make the call. But again, let's do it quick. So we need the HTTP client. Inject HTTP client, call this HTTP maybe. We also need the AuthenticationStateProvider. So AuthenticationStateProvider, AuthStateProvider, and we already need the local storage. And for that, we right-click the client project and add a NuGet package here. Local storage, Blazored.LocalStorage it is, 1.2 million downloads. That's great. So great for Crescenti. This is really a beautiful library. If you don't want to use this thing here, you would have to use the JS runtime and then call the local storage methods yourself. In essence, this works as well. So up to you. Now we have to register this thing real quick here in the program CS of our client project. We call builder and then add Blazored.LocalStorage. I think that's it. Yeah, almost. Our services, of course. Services, and yes, that's the one. Let's make this global maybe. Could be the case that we need it again, and also why not add it here as well in the imports, so we do not get bothered by this thing. All right, so we've got in our login page, we've got now we have to first inject the local storage service. As you can see, just to mention. And there's also a synchronous local storage service. Usually, or by default, you would use the asynchronous one, but it could be the case that you need to call a method synchronously. For that, there's the sync local storage service, but we use the I local storage service that is asynchronous and provides lots of asynchronous methods here. We call this thing just local storage, and now we're able to use it. Now, in the code block, the first thing we need is our user login DTO, our model, because we will add an edit form. And this edit form needs a model and also a method. And in this edit form, then we use the built-in components of Blazor, input text fields in essence, where we enter the username and the password. Okay, but first we need a model for that. So this would be our user model here, user login DTO. This is a new user login DTO like that. And now regarding the edit form, this thing here, we say our model for that is the user. And then we also need to call a method on submit. Just submit. We've also got on valid submit, on invalid submit, lots of fun stuff. I can create lots of videos about that stuff, of course. So got that covered now. And yeah, we need the method, of course. So async task handle login it is. But before we write that method, let's add our form in essence, and this will be really ugly. I'm pretty lazy today. Do not want to add some cascading style sheets or anything, but I think it's totally sufficient to do it like that. So we've got a label. That's already a lot. And now the input text component, and for that we bind the value user and then the username. See that? So we've got our model here. That's nice. And now we can bind to a specific property here. I love that. All right, that's the first one. And now the password, of course. Forgot the ID. Username. Okay. Password, the ID, password here. Then the label as password. We bind to the password and we say the type is also password. Okay, and then the last thing would be the button here. Type submit, that's important. And please log me in. Do it. Okay, so that would be already our edit form, I hope. And after that, now the handle login method. Again, we make a call. Or do you want to see that already? Maybe we can let's have a look here. So I save this with the proper shortcut. Yep. Okay, now where are we? Here we are. And now we have to go to the login page. There it is. Nice. You see, we can do one thing. One tiny thing. Button primary. Yeah. At least a little bit design stuff. And as you can see, nothing happens here. It's calling the handle login method, but we can enter whatever we want. And now I want to log in the user. So the first thing, again, the HTTP call. For that, we get a result back. So await HTTP and then post as JSON async. And the URL would be API auth. Double check. We've got our auth controller, and you can see here on top, this is the route. So the string API and then /, and this is the convention controller. And this is just the term before the controller term. So it really is just auth. And as you can see here, that's a bit different. So we do not have the API string here, just controller. And then this would be weather forecast. And as you can see in the fetch data page, this is then the actual route for the call. All right, a little bit different, but also works, of course. So API auth it is, and since this is a post call, we add our object now, and that would be the user. Again, we do nothing with this thing. This is just to show you how it could be done. And after that, we get the token back, but the result, as you can see here, is an HTTP response message, because post as JSON async returns a task with a HTTP response message. So how do we get our token now? Well, when you know it, it's easy. So our token is now wait results, and this thing has a content, and then we can say read as string async, since we only get the string from the server. If you would return a complex object, then you would use something like that, read from JSON async, and then you add the type in the angle brackets here, and then this would work as well. Okay, so but we only have a string, and with that we get our token, and let's check that. So for instance, we can just write it to the console, save everything. It's rebuilding. Nope, don't want to save that. Do it, and we get our token. All right, so I can enter anything I want here, and I get the same token. Okay, this already works, but now, and this is now the fun part, really. We store this in the local storage. So local storage, and then set item async would be enough. Set item async. We call this thing token, and then also here token. Let's check that. It's rebuilding. Okay. Never do it. And now in our application tab here, we can have a look at the local storage, and there you see our token. Isn't that nice? It's great, huh? So with that, we now have the token here, and then we can call the AuthStateProvider. Wait, AuthStateProvider get AuthenticationStateAsync, and now we have to change the method a little bit because we want to get this token now from the local storage and then decide if the user is authenticated or not. So let's go to the custom AuthStateProvider here. We don't need this now, actually, but we will use the local storage to get it, right? Before we can do that, we have to inject it. So let's comment this out first. We add a constructor here, and we inject the local storage service, call it local storage, and then we create and assign this field here. And now we actually get the token with wait local storage get item as string async, and that would be our token. And now what we can do, we just say we've got an unauthenticated user first. That would be the empty identity. And now if the token is not null or empty, then we use it to set the other identity, the authenticated or authorized identity maybe. So if string is null or empty token, and this is not the case, then we say identity is this new claims identity with the actual token. Okay, and with that now we can call the AuthStateProvider in essence and ask the AuthStateProvider to decide by itself, okay, do I have a token? If so, then I try to parse this thing and set the claims identity, and if not, yeah, I do not have an authenticated user, and that's that. All right. Now the next step would be, after logging in and asking the AuthenticationStateProvider to set the current authentication state of the current user, that we have another component in essence that uses this new authentication state. And this component will then make use of the NotifyAuthenticationStateChanged event. And what I want to do is a pretty simple component in essence. Let's open up the page here. You see the top menu here, kinda. We've got the about link, and what I want to do here is I just want to add a login button, and when the user clicks on a login, then we go to the login page. And when the user is logged in, and this is now crucial, after logging in, the button should change and write or show a logout button without really telling the component that it should display this button. It just knows, it's like magic, it just knows that the user is now authenticated. So let's try that. Okay, we go back to Visual Studio, and now in our shared folder, we add a new component, and this component now, really creative name, login, logout button, okay? And now this thing needs some stuff actually. The first thing what I want to do is when the user clicks on the login button, then I want to navigate the user to just the login page. Simple as that. We use the navigation manager for that. So add inject, navigation manager, navigation manager. Additionally, again, we need the local storage service because when the user logs out, what we want to do is then we remove the item from the local storage, the token from the local storage, and again call the auth state provider, because then the token is null, it's empty. So the authentication state provider should set the auth state again, just to not authenticate it. And then with the notify auth state changed event, tell every component that wants to know that the user is now not authenticated and not authorized anymore. So inject I local storage service, local storage, and the last thing again, the authentication state provider. So authentication state provider, auth state provider maybe. All right, and now we need the authorize view with authorized and not authorized. And maybe you already guessed it, these are actually the components that are listening to the notify auth state changed event. So this thing here, when this thing is raised, these components know, okay, something is different now. So in the case the user is authorized, we show a button, and on click we call a logout method. Logout, maybe also add a little class here, button primary. And in essence, we do the same or something similar here. In the case the user is not authorized, we just call a login method. Call this also login, and maybe we can change that to danger. Is there danger? Button danger? Yeah, that's it. Nice. Okay, so this would be red then, I think. And now the actual method. So first the login method. We call the navigation manager with navigate to and then just login. That's our login page. And now regarding logout, it's an async method, task logout. And again, we say await local storage, remove item async, and that would be our token. And then again, the auth state provider get authentication state async. All right, that's the button. And now, of course, we have to add it somewhere. So in our main layouts, here's the about link, and maybe we can just remove it and add our new login logout button. All right. And now let's see. There's our page. It's not rebuilding. All right. Let's have a look again. Now it is. Well, let's see. Something is wrong. Okay. Let's have a look at the console. Custom auth state provider. It's null or empty. That's absolutely correct. Okay, let's have a look in our application. What happens if we remove this and reload? This works. Okay, we can go to home, login. This even doesn't work. Okay. Why is that? Okay, let's just try console write line. Hello. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Okay. This is what I wanted. Hey. Okay, let's log in. What's happening here? Index out of bounds. Is the token? Oh yeah, the token looks really short. Come on. Okay, let's see. I've got it here. I think. Ah, Jesus. Okay. See that? You want to hardcode the token. And that's what I get now. So let's close this and add the token here now. Now it should be correct. So there really was an error with the token. Did not assume that. Let's restart now again. And I think maybe now, of course, remove the token. And now reload. Everything should work as expected. Yep. Can go to home. We can log in. We can log in and it works. And now this is actually what I wanted to show you. This is the whole magic. We see the logout button. So this thing really changed, right? And we did not actively ask this component for that. The only thing that was happening was that the authentication state provider raised the notify auth state changed event. I tend to forget the name. Another thing I want to show you now here in our counter page, and this is what we did in the first tutorial, in the first part of this thing. You're authorized as Tony Stark, right? But when I now log out, it should be the same thing. We do not actually tell the component that something has changed regarding the authentication state. But when we click logout now, we see that we're not authenticated anymore. And this is how it should work. Now there's one last thing missing I want to show you, and this is adding the token to the default request header of your calls. Because what we did so far is, let's have a look again, in, for instance, the fetch data page. We make this call, right? So when we go back to our page and go to fetch data and have a look at the network tab here, what the forecast it is, we filter this. And here now, what we can see is this is the call, all right? But in our headers, we do not add an authentication header or a bearer token in essence. So even when I log in, say do it, we see we are now logged in, and now I go to fetch data. Again, we see the call, but we do not see the token added to the header. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, in essence, this is one of the main reasons why we do all this authentication stuff. We want to and use JSON Web Tokens in essence. Well, the thing is, when a user is logging in with his or her credentials, then we know, okay, everything is fine. The user is the one, or at least the user knows the credentials, so it seems everything is all right. And for instance, the user is allowed to access the weather forecast data now. But to make this weather forecast call, we cannot just assume that the login worked and now we just let the user do or let the user access all that weather forecast data just because the user logged in successfully once. We want to know with every single web service call, we want to know if this is the authorized user, right? So one way would be to just add the user credentials, meaning username and password, for every single call. But well, I think the usability would not be that great in this case. So what we can do now with the JSON Web Token, of course, is the token tells the server that this is the authorized user. There are some more details to that with the secret key we would add in the app settings JSON. Again, have a look at the info cards. There is the tutorial where you learn this stuff. But let's just assume the server knows with the given token everything is fine. So we can use this token now with every single web service call. And long story short, let's just add the token to the header of every web service call if we got a token. And for that, we use the authentication state provider again. So back here, and we already got our if statement here and now. That's a better practice anyways, to add the curly braces. So if we have a token now, one thing is we set the identity, but the other thing would be to set the default header. If we do not have a token, or by default, we set the default authorization header to null. And excuse me, please, if I said authentication header before, sometimes I do that. I don't know why, it's just what I do. But it is actually the authorization header, not authentication. So default request headers, and we need the HTTP client for that, of course. So HTTP client, HTTP it is, and that's the one. Okay, and now we have it, and here's the authorization. And this thing would be null in that case. So we have no token, and in that case we have no identity, and we do not set anything to the authorization header. But if we have one, we have a token. In essence, what we do then is, again, HTTP default request header. Now it's suggested, see, authorization. And in here now, we say new authentication header value, authentication header value, that's the one, and we add the using directive, I hope. I told you it's late. Authentication. Okay, now it works. And in here now, this is a bearer token. And then we've got our token here. And one thing that happens is, again, let's have a look at the application tab. You see the quotation marks here, right? We don't want that. So let's just replace the quotation marks like that. And we, in essence, just remove them. And now this should work. Okay, so I somehow had to rebuild this thing, but now in the network tab, you can see it here. We are not logged in, and we do not see an authentication header somewhere. Right, now when we log in, say do it, go back to fetch data, and now we see our authorization header. All right, nice. And now when we would add something like that, the authorize attribute, again, this would not work just like that. We have to also add some middleware for that stuff. Again, there are videos on my channel where we do all this. And when we realize that, then we can really say, okay, we need this authorization header to be set. And only then we get the weather forecast data. But if the user is logged out, not authenticated, or not authorized regarding the role, for instance, then the user is not allowed to see the data. All right, I think this is really now everything I wanted to show you. So that's it. I hope now you know everything. If not, write it down in the comment section and I will do my best to create another video for you guys, of course. Thank you very, very much for clicking the like button and maybe even subscribing to my channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon for a notification about new uploaded videos. Apart from that, maybe again, the newsletter could be something for you. If you want early access to all these videos, upcoming online courses and so on, then please consider subscribing to the newsletter. And last but not least, again, thank you so much for all your support, your coffees, donations, Ko-fis. This means the world to me. And as you can see, my eyes are, well, it is late. For me, it's late. It's 11 o'clock. So yeah, it is. For me, it's late. You know the drill. Little boy who is asleep now. Here's my my baby phone, as you can see, and pretty happy that it is silent now. So yeah, enough about that. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.